The most dangerous player in tennis right now isn't the one hitting 120 mph serves or ripping inside out forehands at 3000 RPM. It's the one who just exposed a system the sport has quietly ignored for years. And if you think that sounds exaggerated, if you think this is just another post match reaction blown out of proportion, then you haven't been paying attention. Because what Coco Gauff just did in Madrid might end up mattering more than any quarterfinal run, any ranking jump, any trophy she's chasing this season. Let that sink in. We're not talking about a routine loss. We're talking about a pressure point, a breaking moment, a collision between elite performance and something much uglier simmering underneath the surface of modern tennis, the gambling ecosystem and the toxic backlash that comes with it. Now, before you call this dramatic, before you scroll away thinking this is just social media noise, let's anchor ourselves in reality. Coco Gauff, a Grand Slam champion, one of the most mentally resilient baseline defenders on tour, just came through a physically demanding stretch at the Madrid Open. High altitude, faster clay conditions, thinner air, this isn't your standard grind. Madrid rewards aggression, quick point construction, heavy first strike tennis. It punishes hesitation. And she was navigating all of that while dealing with a health scare that forced a medical timeout. That matters. That changes rhythm. That disrupts timing on the return. That affects footwork patterns, especially on clay, where micro adjustments define whether you control the rally or get dragged side to side. Still, she pushed through. She battled. She reached the round of 16, and then she ran into Linda Noskova. Now let's talk about that match because this is where the narrative starts to twist. Noskova didn't just win, she exposed something technically fascinating about Goff's current game profile. The final scoreline, 6 to 4, 1 to 6, 7 to 6, tells you everything about the volatility of that contest. Set 1, Noskova executes with surgical precision. Early ball striking, flattening out her backhand, taking time away. She's stepping inside the baseline, redirecting pace, forcing Goff into defensive court positions. And when Goff gets pulled wide, especially on that forehand wing, the unforced error count starts creeping up. Not dramatically, but enough to tilt key points. Then set 2, complete reversal. This is where Goff's elite athleticism kicks in, her speed, her anticipation, her ability to reset rallies. She increases topspin margin, pushes Noskova deeper behind the baseline, extends rallies to 10, 12, 14 shots. That's where Goff thrives. That's her ecosystem. And Noskova collapses under that weight. So now we're going into a third set decider, and this is where elite tennis becomes psychological warfare. Breakpoint conversion, serve pattern, second serve vulnerability, it all matters more now. Goff's kick serve starts getting targeted. Noskova begins stepping in on second returns, flattening out the backhand, taking it early. And suddenly it's a coin flip, a tiebreak. Margins shrink to nothing. One mistimed forehand, one short second serve, one lapse in concentration, and it's over. Noskova edges it 7 to 5 in the breaker. That's tennis at the highest level. That's not failure. That's competition. But here's where things go off the rails. Because while analysts are looking at rally patterns, while coaches are breaking down court positioning, while players are recalibrating strategy, there's another group watching this match. Not for the sport, not for the technique, not for the nuance. They're watching for money. And when the outcome doesn't match their bets, when the probability models they trusted collapse under real world pressure, something ugly emerges. Something predictable yet still shocking in its intensity. They turn on the player. And this time, they didn't just criticize performance. They crossed a line. So Coco Gauff does something that most athletes hesitate to do. She doesn't issue a generic statement. She doesn't hide behind PR language. She goes straight at it. She posts a TikTok 7 seconds sharp, deliberate, controlled, and she calls them out directly, angry gamblers flooding her comments with racist abuse. That phrasing matters. Angry, gamblers, racist. She's identifying the source, the motivation, and the behavior all in one shot. Now, pause for a second and really think about the implications of that. Because this isn't isolated, this isn't random trolling. This is part of a growing pattern in professional tennis, where the explosion of online betting has created a parallel audience, one that doesn't care about development arcs, doesn't care about match conditions, doesn't care about human limits. They care about outcomes, binary results, win or lose. And when reality deviates from expectation, they lash out. We've seen it before. Players receiving thousands of abusive messages after matches, death threats, personal attacks. But what Goff is highlighting, and this is crucial, is the racial element layered on top of that frustration. That's not just sports toxicity, that's something deeper, something more dangerous. And if you think this doesn't affect performance, you're underestimating the mental load these players carry. Tennis is already one of the most psychologically demanding sports on the planet. There's no coach during points, no substitutions, no teammates to absorb pressure. It's just you, your opponent, and your ability to manage stress in real time. Now add this external noise, this constant stream of abuse, this knowledge that every missed break point, every double fault, every failed service game could trigger a wave of hate. That changes things. It affects risk tolerance, it affects shot selection, it affects confidence in crucial moments. And here's where we need to be brutally honest. Goff's game is still evolving. Her forehand mechanics, her serve consistency, her ability to dictate from the middle of the court, these are active development areas. She's not a finished product, she's building towards something. But that process requires space, it requires patience. It requires the freedom to fail without being attacked at a personal level. Instead, she's being forced to navigate both elite competition and a toxic digital environment simultaneously. Now, let's bring in the broader context because this is where the skeptics usually step in, comes with the territory. Part of being a public figure? Just ignore it. No, that's outdated thinking because the scale has changed. The intensity has changed. The accessibility has changed. Social media has turned athletes into direct targets. There's no buffer anymore, no filter, no delay. And when you combine that with gambling losses, you get a volatile mix. We're talking about people who are emotionally and financially invested in outcomes they can't control. That's a dangerous psychological state. And when it collapses, they look for someone to blame. The player becomes the outlet. But here's the twist, and this is the part most people are missing. Goff isn't just reacting, she's controlling the narrative. By calling them out publicly, by framing them as angry gamblers, she's shifting perception. She's exposing the absurdity of the situation. She's taking power away from anonymous accounts and redirecting attention to the real issue. And fans are responding. You can see it in the reactions, support flooding in, people acknowledging the severity of the comments, others demanding accountability. That's momentum. That's how narratives change. And this brings us to the secret weapon moment, the thing that doesn't show up in match stats, doesn't appear in analytics dashboards, but might define Goff's trajectory over the next 3 months. Her voice. Because while other players stay silent, while others absorb the pressure quietly, Goff speaks consistently, confidently, without hesitation. That's not common in tennis. This is a sport built on restraint, on controlled emotion, on post match diplomacy. Players are trained to deflect, to neutralize, to avoid controversy. Goff does the opposite. And that's a competitive advantage. Not in the traditional sense, not in terms of aces or winners, but in terms of identity, presence, influence. Because when you control your narrative, you control how pressure is perceived, and that feeds back into performance. Now let's project forward because this is where things get interesting. Clay season isn't over. Roland Garros is approaching. Conditions will slow down, rallies will extend, physical endurance will become even more critical. That favors Goff's baseline game, her court coverage, her defensive transitions, her ability to turn defense into offense. But her serve needs tightening. Her forehand needs more reliability under pressure. Her breakpoint conversion rate needs to improve if she wants to go deep in Paris. And mentally, she needs to compartmentalize this noise without suppressing her voice. That's the balance. Speak out, but stay locked in. Acknowledge the issue, but don't let it bleed into match play. If she can do that, if she can channel this moment into focus rather than distraction, then we're looking at a dangerous contender over the next 3 months. Not just for titles, but for something bigger. Because the rest of the tour is watching. Players see this, they feel it, they experience similar things, even if they don't speak on it publicly. And when someone like Goff steps forward, it creates a ripple effect. It forces conversation. It challenges norms. It exposes problems that have been quietly tolerated. And that changes the environment. So here's the prediction, and I want you to remember this. Over the next 3 months, Coco Gauff is going to elevate not just in rankings, not just in results, but in presence, in authority, in influence. She's going to sharpen her serve percentages, reduce unforced errors on that forehand wing, improve her point construction in high pressure moments. You're going to see more controlled aggression, more decisive shot selection, more confidence stepping inside the baseline. And at the same time, she's going to continue speaking. That combination, that's powerful because it's rare to find a player who can evolve technically while also redefining their role in the sport. And for the rest of the tour, this is the warning. If you're only preparing for her speed, her defense, her athleticism, you're already behind. Because now you're dealing with a player who's not just competing, she's confronting, she's exposing, she's changing the conversation. And once that happens, once a player steps into that space with confidence and clarity, they don't go backwards, they don't get quieter, they don't disappear, they get louder, they get sharper, they get more dangerous. So if you haven't been paying attention, now is the time because this isn't just about one match in Madrid. This is about momentum on the court, off the court, and everywhere in between. And the rest of the tennis world, they're not ready for what's coming next.